Another day, another video full of controversy. Today might be one of the more controversial videos that I have done on this channel because we're not just talking about players and who's the best on each team. That gets people going. But we're going to be talking about some of the more well-known players in all of baseball and telling you whether they're overrated or underrated. So yeah, we're going to be talking about guys like Bryce Harper, Mike Trout, Chris Bryant, Manny Machado, some of the biggest names in all of baseball. And I'm going to be telling you if they're overrated, underrated, or if everyone's treating them properly. This video is similar to a tier list. I mean, it's still using the same website, but we're not doing, S to F. We're doing overrated to underrated. This is definitely going to cause some heat in the comments section. So as always, I recommend you get down there, let me know your thoughts and opinions. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? I'd love to see what you guys have to say down in the comment section below. Remember, leave a like on this video if you do enjoy it. You want to see more of this kind of content. Leaving a like's the best way to show your support. Subscribe if you're new and you enjoy the content. If you love baseball, we're on that daily grind here. This is the place you need to be subscribed to if you want to see baseball content. Look at that, 2 days in a row with videos. Come on now. And make sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram at GiraffeNeckMarc. Links in the description down below. It's the best way to keep in touch with me, see what I'm saying, talking about baseball, all that good stuff. So let's get going into this one. It's gonna be real juicy. So Jose Abreu, pretty good player. As a hitter, he's really good. Honestly, very underrated. Now, fielding-wise, he's not great, so I think for that reason, I'm going to drop him in this yellow tier, which basically says he's closer to underrated than he is overrated. I don't think people talk about him enough, but I don't think he's, like, at that top of the top where you're like, man, nobody's talking about this guy, because White Sox fans know he's good. Chris Archer. This player is someone who I think is definitely on the overrated side. I'm debating whether he goes in the middle or if he goes completely overrated. I think I'm going to drop him in completely overrated. I think he has all the talent in the world, but I think he gets talked about as being this Cy Young type pitcher, and we just have not really seen that yet from him. He's gone to the Pirates. He hasn't been the pitcher that they've wanted. He hasn't been terrible, but he's just not that kind of player. And they've gave up Glasnow, and they gave up Austin Meadows, who have been playing great for the Tampa Bay Rays since going there. And when you trade those guys for Chris Archer, you expect something big back, and he just hasn't really done that for me. He's just never hit that potential that we once saw. He's been good, but he hasn't been Cy Young level. Javi Baez. I think Javi Baez is properly rated. A lot of people were saying he's overrated before, and he's just kind of stepped up. He's shown that he's a really good ball player, so I think Javi Baez is properly rated. Trevor Bauer. I think this is another guy who's properly rated. I don't think anybody's talking about him as the number one, number two best pitcher in baseball. Nobody's saying he's unhittable, but people do realize that he is very talented. He's really good at striking out batters. He's one of the more improved pitchers that we've seen over the last few years, so I think he's properly rated. Cody Bellinger. I think Cody Bellinger's going to fall into the properly rated category as well. Great rookie of the year. He kind of went down last year a little bit, but he has come out swinging this year, absolutely dominant, and everybody's talking about him, and it's well-deserved. I mean, he's having possibly the best season in baseball right now. So I think to be talking about him like he's one of the best in the game is pretty accurate because he's playing like it, so he's definitely properly rated. Andrew Benintendi. Benintendi's going to fall into the same category with Jose Abreu. I think he's an underrated player. I don't think people talk about him enough as being one of the more important pieces in that Boston Red Sox lineup. He can get lost because you got guys like Mookie Betts and JD Martinez out there, but I don't think the Red Sox are as successful as they are without the help of Andrew Benintendi. He's one of my favorite players to watch, definitely towards the underrated side. Bryce Harper. Yeah, you know where he's going. Overrated, baby. Bryce Harper, $300+ million. He's hitting 240. I know batting average isn't the most important thing, but come on now, you're paying this guy $300+ million. You can't tell me you're just okay with him being a guy who gets on base a lot and hits some home runs here and there. You need to see him be an MVP type player, and right now, you know he's not performing like an MVP type player, Phillies. You guys are playing well. I'm going to give you that 100%. But when you pay a guy $300 million, he needs to be an MVP type player. And right now, Bryce Harper is not an MVP type player. He was an MVP type player last year. So while I think Bryce Harper is still a very good baseball player, he's currently overrated right now. I mean, Ryan Braun, I don't honestly know why he's on this list. Does anyone really even talk about Ryan Braun? He's going to go improperly rated because honestly, I don't hear anybody talking about him for the Brewers. He's definitely one of the guys off to the side. He's a pretty average outfielder now in his career, so properly rated because who really cares? Alex Bregman. I'm dropping Alex Bregman a little bit in the underrated category. Now, I think he's a top 10 player in baseball. I don't hear enough people talking about him as a top 10 player in baseball. I think the people that understand the sport know that he's very good, but I don't think that people on the outside understand how good of a ball player he is. So while I don't think he's completely underrated, I still think a lot of people know how good he is. He deserves a little bit more attention. Nick Castellanos for the Tigers. I'm going to go ahead and say he's properly rated. The dude rakes at the plate. He's atrocious in the field. That's what you're going to get with him. He's going to hit the ball, but he's not going to be great in the outfield. Properly rated. Not a lot to say about him. Nelson Cruz. it's weird because I want to put him in the underrated category because this is a dude who's one of the best power hitters in the game and honestly doesn't get enough attention, but he's a DH, so I can't put him in underrated. I'm going to drop him in that tier right above it because I don't think, again, he gets enough recognition for being one of the elite power hitters in baseball, but he is, so that's a little underrated to me. D. Gordon, kind of a little bit overrated in my opinion. He's a good player. He hasn't been at that quality that we once saw, and then he got suspended for steroids, of course. But D. Gordon's a little bit overrated. Obviously, he's got that speed, but in Seattle, he just hasn't been the kind of player that a lot of people expected. 2017 was interesting for Kyle Freeland. It was an okay season. 2018 was fantastic, so he thought, maybe he's going to break. He broke out. Maybe he's going to be a top pitcher now, and he's been horrible in 2019. So I'm going to drop Kyle Freeland in this kind of category against the Colorado Rockies. It's hard to have a Rockies player kind of be overrated. There's not a lot of national attention around these guys, and for someone to get in that top overrated tier, I need national attention being talked about, or one of these guys that everyone hypes up. Kyle Freeland's just not that player. Joey Gallo. This is going to be surprising to me, but I think he's going to just fall in this just a little bit underrated category. Now, in the MLB The Show community, everybody knows about him being the GOAT because he hits for home runs in the game like it's his job, but he's actually starting to become a really good baseball player, and I still think people have this idea about him that he's this dude who just doesn't hit at all. He only hits home runs, which he still is a predominant home run hitter, but his average is up this year, so I think he's a little underrated. Paul Goldschmidt is going to be the first player I drop in underrated. He's one of these first basemen, one of these players in the game who, yes, people understand he's very good, but I don't think they understand just how good he is. 30 plus home runs here. He's hitting 300, on base percentage in 400, slugging percentage in the 500s, OPS around 900. He plays Gold Glove first base. He can steal a bag or two. I mean, Paul Goldschmidt's really good, and I don't feel like ever people talk about him as one of the best players in the game. Alex Gordon's having a good year this year, but in the past, like 3 or 4 years, he's been kind of terrible. So again, small market, no one really talks about Alex Gordon. He's going to go improperly rated for me because, again, kind of who cares? Billy Hamilton's definitely overrated. This is a dude who, if he could just hit the ball on the ground to the shortstop every single time, he would be probably a 300 hitter, and then he would steal second, he'd steal third, and it's pretty much a triple every single time. But Billy Hamilton doesn't like to hit the ball on the ground, loves to hit pop-ups. He doesn't have home run power, so yes, when he hits the ball in the air, it's pretty much an out. He's pretty overrated. He was a failure with the Reds. The Royals are trying to get something out of him. I just don't see it. Billy Hamilton's overrated. Jason Hayward, yeah. Overrated. The Cubs, the reason they don't have Bryce Harper is because of Jason Hayward. They gave this guy an insane amount of money, almost $200 million, and he is not a $200 million player. That's got to be one of the worst contracts in Major League Baseball history, Jason Hayward. Now, yes, they won a World Series, so they did get that out of him, but oh man, from a sheer performance standpoint, yikes, not worth that money. Jackie Bradley Jr., hate to do it to you because you're a Gamecock, and you guys know I'm a University of South Carolina alumni, but oh, he's overrated. My goodness, Red Sox fans talk about him like he covers the 7 seas, that he can cover the entire earth. I mean, he's a good center fielder, but his defensive numbers are down this year, and he can't hit a lick this year. I mean, his OPS plus at one point was in the single digits. Jackie Bradley Jr. doesn't offer much offensively, and we talk about this guy like he's a stud player. I wish I could say he's great because he's a Gamecock, but that's just not the case. Adam Jones, this is going to catch a little bit of heat here, but I think he's a little bit on the underrated side. I know sabermetrically he's not one of these great players, but he's a dude who puts up 20 home runs, 70 RBIs, hits around 270, 280 every year. This is a guy who I think is a pretty solid player. I don't understand why he never gets put in the top 10 talks for outfielders at certain positions. I like Adam Jones a lot. I think he's underrated. Aaron Judge, I think, is properly rated. People talk about him being great. He is great. There's not much else to say about him. He's a really good ball player. People say he's really good. He's a top player in the game. He's properly rated. Dallas Keuchel, I think he's properly rated as well. You know, there are some people who maybe say he's a really good pitcher. I think he is a solid guy. I don't think he's that Cy Young caliber type player we once saw, but I think he's properly rated. I mean, he's not on a team right now, so maybe he's underrated. Chris Davis, I'm going to drop him close to the overrated side. I've seen it recently on my videos, and this is what's making me believe it. People were trying to tell me he's a top 50 player in Major League Baseball, which is absolutely insane to me. If people think that, he's clearly got to be overrated a little bit, because this is a dude who is a DH. He doesn't play the outfield because he can't reach the cutoff man. He's horrendous in the field. He only hits for power. He hits 247 every year. He doesn't walk a whole lot. He strikes out a ton. He's definitely a good power hitter, but that's really it. Home runs is pretty much his entire game. Kevin Kiermaier, let's go ahead and throw him in crazy overrated. Defensively, disgusting. I understand. Defensively, he's great, but my God, is he a horrible offensive player. Terrible at the plate. And people are telling me that he should be a top 50 player in baseball, or that he's one of the best center fielders in the game. Defensively, sure, but in total, absolutely not. Chris Bryant, this is a guy who I'm changing my tune on a little bit. If you asked me last year, he would have been up here in overrated. If you asked me at the start of the year, he's probably right around here. But I think he's properly rated right now. He's definitely a good ball player. I still don't think he's the elite like some people say, but you know what? He is a good ball player, so I'm going to put him properly rated. DJ LeMahieu. I'm going to go ahead and put DJ LeMahieu in underrated. He's been a big addition for the New York Yankees this offseason. He gets on base, hits for average. He's a gold glover in the field wherever you put him. I think DJ LeMahieu's a really good player. The only reason you wouldn't have him in underrated is just because Yankee fans love to talk about how good everybody on that team is, so you heard about him a little bit more, but DJ LeMahieu's a good player, and I don't think that he was actually getting as much talk if he wasn't on the Yankees playing this well. Manny Machado. Good ball player, but he's going to go up here and a little bit overrated again because of his contract being paid $300 million. Now, I do think he's having a little bit more of an impact than Bryce Harper, and I do think that he's a better player than Bryce Harper, so that's why he doesn't go in the completely overrated part, but he is a little bit overrated. He has not lived up to that contract just yet. You're paying him $300 million, and you see a little bit better numbers. Madison Bumgarner, I think he's properly rated. People talk about him being a top pitcher in the game. He's having a little bit of a rough season thus far in 2019, but if you look at his numbers in the previous years when he's healthy and playing, he's a really good pitcher. So I think Bumgarner's properly rated. He just needs to get out of San Francisco, and then he'll be back to normal. Maikel Franco. You know what? I'm going to drop him properly rated. There's a lot of Philly fans who think he's really good, but there's also a lot of Philly fans who understand his role on the team. So I'm going to give you credit here, Philadelphia. Take this one, because you guys know I don't give you a lot of credit. For those fans who know Maikel Franco's place, this is why he's here and properly rated, because no one else around the league is talking about him being great. It's just Philly fans. Nick Markakis, the man who just consistently gets underrated. Now, listen, did he go ice cold in the second half last year? Yes, but this is a dude who's going to possibly finish his career with 3,000 hits. I mean, that's kind of it. He's casually going to finish his career with 3,000 hits possibly. So, I mean, I don't think he's super underrated because he's not like a star player who no one talks about, but he's a solid little piece, and in that Braves lineup, he works well, so I think he's underrated. Whit Merrifield. I'm dropping Whit Merrifield in the completely underrated category here. He does everything for the Royals. He hits for average. He actually has a lot more pop than people, I think, even think of. When you think of Whit Merrifield, you're thinking, maybe 10 home runs at most, but this is a guy who approaches 20 home runs sometimes. He steals bases. He's led the league in hits the last couple seasons. Whit Merrifield's a really good ball player. Miggy is going to go improperly rated for me, and here's why. No one's talking about him as being one of the best players in the game anymore because he isn't. So, while he was incredible in his heyday, one of the best hitters I've ever seen play the game, right now, people understand that he's towards the end of his career. He's towards the end of his contract. He could fall in here because, man, his contract is horrible, but people understand now that it's the end of his career and no one is saying that he's deserving that money. Everyone's like, yeah, it's kind of bad. So I think he's properly rated. We've got Ohtani. I'm going to drop him properly rated. He's really good. He obviously is not going to pitch this year because of Tommy John stuff, but he's a good hitter. He's a good pitcher. He's got a lot of hype around him, and he's lived up to it thus far. I think he's properly rated. Buster Posey, dragging him into the overrated category. I'm really disappointed in Buster Posey. Yes, he'll still hit for some average, but I mean, is he even doing that this year? I mean, he's hitting 260. His OPS plus is under 100. He doesn't hit for any power anymore. I mean, Buster Posey just like, he's a really boring player. I hate when people say he's a star because he's not in baseball anymore. For that reason, overrated. He's clearly not a star, and people still call him that. Yasiel Puig. Gonna drop him in the overrated category as well. Since coming to the Reds, just hasn't been the player that we thought maybe he would take that next step forward. Maybe the Dodgers were holding him back, but he's playing terribly. This is a guy who has all the talent in the world and has just never lived up to it. So yeah, he's overrated. JT Realmuto. JT Realmuto is gonna be properly rated for me. He's a really good player. Everyone says he's the best catcher in baseball. I agree with him. He plays like the best catcher in baseball. Properly rated. Anthony Rendon. You know I'm dropping him in underrated. I still don't think enough people talk about him. He's incredibly good. He's one of the best players in the game. One of the best third basemen in the game. And I still don't think people talk about him that much, so I think he's underrated. Anthony Rizzo, I think, is actually a little bit underrated. When you look at his numbers at first base, he may not start off the year extremely hot, and he may not be one of these guys who hits 50 home runs and hits 350, but you look at his numbers at the end of the year, and he gets it done every single time. 30 home runs, 100 RBIs. He's going to get on base. He's going to play a great first base, of course. Anthony Rizzo, I think, is kind of underrated. Starlin Castro, I don't really know why Marlins player's on here, because who really cares? I mean, properly rated, no one's really talking about him, so who really cares? And I also saw another Marlins player, Neil Walker. Yeah, no one's talking about Marlins players because they suck, the Marlins, so properly rated because who cares? Ahmed Rosario, I'm going to drop him in the little bit of an overrated category. He was, of course, our #1 prospect. He hasn't yet lived up to that hype. Now, he is starting to hit a little bit this year, which is nice, and he started to do that towards the end of last year, but his glove has been a little bit shaky this year. In the past, it's been better, but this year he's hit a little bit of a snag, so I gotta say he's a little bit overrated right now. Eddie Rosario, I'm gonna say is properly rated. Minnesota Twins fans know he's pretty good. He doesn't hit for great average, but he does produce. People around the league are starting to understand that a bit, so I think he's properly rated. I don't think he's a star in the league, and I don't think that he's a bum. Gary Sanchez. Now, of course, if you're talking about just Yankee fans, they overrate him. They say he's the best catcher in the game. They say he's the best player in the game. He's Gary Sanchez. I personally think Gary Sanchez is properly rated. He's hitting again this year. Last year clearly showed that it was just injuries that was keeping him from swinging the bat properly. He's a really good hitter defensively. He's got a cannon, and catching-wise, well, he's not great. But I think he's properly rated. He's definitely one of the top catchers in the game. Corey Seager, I'm going to drop in the properly rated category as well, and here's why. He's coming back from pretty big injuries, so I'm going to give him some time to kind of readjust. You got to remember, when players come off big injuries like that, it's hard to come back and be that player you once were. He was incredible when he was healthy prior to his injury. We still haven't seen it just yet, but I think he's properly rated. I got to give him some more time before I can say he's starting to become overrated. Blake Snell, I think he's properly rated as well. Now, if you asked it last year, a lot of people probably didn't know who he was, but he won the Cy Young now. He's got that kind of moniker on him. He's got that hype around him, and he's still pitching well. So I think Blake Snell is definitely properly rated. He's a good pitcher, and he's continuing to do well. Juan Soto. Juan Soto's an interesting player. You know, he had a great year last year. Definitely surprised a lot of people. This year, he's off to a little bit of a slow start. I want to drop him here, but I don't think he deserves to be there. I think he's properly rated. I think he's still a very good player. Now, his numbers this year are, again, off to a slow start, but I think he's going to start to heat up, and I think he's going to be just fine. So Juan Soto's properly rated. He's a good ball player. Giancarlo Stanton, properly rated. I hate to do this because I want to start some more controversy. I mean, I put a lot of Yankees in the properly rated. That's usually the fan base I love to stir up the most. I mean, he still had an OPS at 852 last year. He's a good ball player. Steven Strasburg is going to get in that just a little bit overrated category for me. He's not the same pitcher that we once saw. He doesn't throw hard anymore. He's just, he was the #1 pick. Honestly, you know what? I'm going to leave him there. He was the #1 pick, like Bryce Harper. He was supposed to be this guy that was going to lead the Nationals to the future, lead them to some World Series championships. He's just never done that. He's never been that pitcher that they expected. So he really could fall up here, but I think I'm going to leave him down here because he still is good. He's just not as good as we thought. Marcus Stroman. I'm going to drop him in the overrated category as well. Now, yes, he's having a good year this year, but last couple have been a little bit rough, and I feel like people talk about this guy. Yes, he's fun. Yes, he's energetic. Yes, he's one of these guys you want to root for. But I feel like we talk about him sometimes as one of the top pitchers in the game. I feel like I hear some people say that, and it blows my mind when I hear that, because he's not. His numbers are pretty much identical to what they were last year. He's just giving up a little bit less hits, but he's still walking a lot of guys, not striking out people. So I think his numbers are going to come back to earth at some point. I hope I'm wrong, because Marcus Stroman seems to be a good guy, but I think he's a little overrated. Dansby Swanson, too. I'm going to give him a little bit overrated as well. #1 overall pick. He hasn't been that type of player that we have expected just yet for the Atlanta Braves. Now, while we have seen some sparks of him looking like he may get there, he hasn't done it yet for a full season, so I can't say he's properly rated because there was a lot of hype around him, and he just hasn't lived up to it yet. Oh, this pains me to do it, but I'm going to drop Noah Syndergaard in the slightly overrated category. This is a dude who I myself have overrated at times. And you know what? I need to take a step back from that. Noah Syndergaard, while he's not pitching amazing this year, he's not pitching terribly, it's just not the Noah that I want. I love me Noah Syndergaard when he's on, and I love that he's pretty cocky and talks himself up a bit, but at some point, I need to see him back to that dominant level that he was at. He just isn't like that anymore, it seems. Mike Trout is going to go in underrated. You want to know why? Because Mike Trout's one of the best players that we're going to ever see play the game. And while, yes, there are a ton of people who agree and say that same thing, does your mom know who Mike Trout is? Does your grandma know who Mike Trout is? Because they should. And the fact that they don't means he's underrated. Jonathan VR, why are you on here? Properly rated? Who cares? I'm literally not going to take any more time than that. I wish there was a category for hyped, because Vlad Jr. would fall in the hype category, but I think he's properly rated. I think this dude's going to be an absolute stud. He's got so much incredible hype that it's going to be really tough to live up to it, but I think only seeing 15 games is kind of tough to say, like, he's either underrated or overrated. Kind of more about hype right now. For his career, it's going to be tough, like I said, but I think Vlad's a good ball player. Joey Votto's going to get in the little bit overrated category for me. He just hasn't been the same player the last few seasons. It looks like we're kind of starting to see the decline of Joey Votto. Just has looked lost. He has not been the same player. The power seems to be completely gone. And for a guy at first base, don't really care if he walks a lot. I need some power out of my guys there. He really could even fall here, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to put him there. Yep, he's that overrated. Yadier Molina. He's a little overrated. Cardinals fans love to tell you how he's the best catcher in baseball, and that's just not true. I don't think he's even top 5. So he's definitely overrated. Yadi, of course, throughout his entire career has been a great catcher, but he's not as good as he once was defensively. He's below average offensively, so I mean, Yadi's definitely a little overrated. And then last is Christian Yelich, and I'm going to put Christian Yelich a little bit underrated. Again, another dude who last year just absolutely went off in that MVP season. He's going off again this year, and I still don't feel like enough people are talking about him. Yes, the baseball people are, But when you're talking about the great players of the game, I need people on the outside. I need my mom, my grandma to know who they are. Some of my friends who are casual baseball fans, they probably wouldn't know how good Christian Yelich is. So yeah, I think he's a little underrated. So that is my overrated, underrated video on players that were basically put in this tier list thing. So if you want to see me do more players, you're going to have to go out and make a tier list yourself. You can send it to me on Twitter and Instagram. I'd love to do more of this if you guys do enjoy it. Which reminds me, if you do enjoy it, make sure to leave a like. Remember to let me know what you think about my decisions down in the comment section below. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Subscribe to the channel if you're new and you enjoy the content. If you love baseball, this is the place to be, so make sure you hit that sub button. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at GiraffeNeckMarc. Links in the description down below. And that's going to wrap up today's video. YouTube recommends you watch this video right here, as well as this is my most recent upload, so click through those if you have not seen them yet already. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all next time.